Yeah.
Yeah. This is the two, the one commentary that were in the movie. Way down there in my house.
As Mary says elsewhere, there is already great virtue and holiness in this. She was speaking to Mary's sorrow, had not yet acquired these dispositions after some 20 years of religious life, and yet she was not without merit. She keeps the rule, follows the observances, and is sometimes well liked. She tries to have a pleasing personality. She tries to be good-natured. She is extremely intelligent and highly talented. But the trouble is that she lacks this foundation of virtue and holiness, as many of us do. Her chief fault was that she was fleeing the light. She cannot adhere to one director, and for this gives excuses which are nothing but deceits of nature. For she well knows that she would have to change her ways if she entrusted her soul to a man of interior life. This is what Mary did. At the outset, therefore, when God invites us to give him everything, our hearts are moved. Mary describes this experience. Once again, I want you to know that all souls for whom God wishes to do great things are led along this path. He first called you by giving you a strong interior attraction, then sensible feelings, and an ardent desire to begin to imitate his Son, Jesus, perfectly. He made you experience the words of that Son. No one comes to me except the Father draw him, urging another to walk courageously in the way of virtue which God had shown her. She says, if God had not called you to it, you would not be there. At times, in order to unite us more closely to him, God sends consolations or graces of passing union, which permits us to relish God. With regard to these, Mary writes, these are, I think, heavenly foretastes and experiences that God deigns to give the soul in order to woo and win it for himself. If it is faithful, it will advance in the ways of God. At this period, we are still beginners on the road to perfection. We have yet to take certain steps essential to spiritual evolution. The will is slow in forming the resolve to renounce everything and follow God. This, in fact, the second conversion is described, which, as he says, should be common to all religions, since their state tends toward perfection. But all do not achieve it because of their negligence. We must distinguish between this second conversion, an ordinary grace in the spiritual life, from another conversion which involves an extraordinary grace proper to special vocations. This Mary of the Incarnation experienced March 24th, 1620, when in ecstasy she beheld herself plunged into the blood of Christ to be cleansed from her sins. She took care, however, not to speak of this to those under her guidance, for she knew it was a very special favor entirely dependent on the good pleasure of God. Nevertheless, in these two conversions, we find a common element. In both cases, the soul is enlightened with regard to its own wretchedness, aka shadow work. Speaking of the grace of March 24th, Mary writes, "Then in an instant the eyes of my soul were opened, and all the faults, sins, and imperfections that I had ever committed were shown me in a broad outline and in detail, with surer precision and clarity than can be expressed by human effort." Just as there are two kinds of conversion, so there are two ways by which we receive at the realization of our misery the ordinary, the other extraordinary. We do not always remain in the same state. Each one has his weakness, which he discovers only insofar as God gives him light. And this he imparts only by degrees, and unless it entails an uncommon way and quite an unusual gift of wisdom, he does not reveal his secrets to the soul all at once. Goodwill, or the desire to belong to God, is fundamental, but to develop it must have the favorable spiritual climate of fidelity, confidence, and freedom of the soul. What's up? Make up my mind. You want me? You don't? What's going on? Make up your mind, and I'll make up mine. Don't worry about me, I'll be fine. Those words that you say out to me while